I'd like to welcome you all to In Conservation with the penultimate one. There's only one more, that's one tomorrow, but this is one that has been really kind of high on my priority list for a long time. And I can't believe it, but Alison Steadman, National Treasure, I'm sorry to embarrass you, but National Treasure has actually agreed to hang out on my lo-fi in conservation with. I mean, you should be under the spotlights and, you know, cameras rolling and stuff, but here you are, Alison, in your living room, actually wherever you are, talking to me. I can't believe it, Alison. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure, my pleasure. It's lovely to be here. Lovely to be here.
Okay, well, I'll go into where we've come from, basically, because we know each other for a little bit, but just to quickly say that tonight is being sponsored by Leica Sport Optics and King's Place Music Foundation as part of their Nature Unwrapped season. So thank you very much, guys, for actually doing that. And Alison and I, we've actually, I don't think we've actually physically met, have we? No, we have. We met 2 years ago when I was doing my book launch.
Yeah.
And I was very excited because basically Alison's an ambassador for the London Wildlife Trust as well. So that's basically why you were there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it was just lovely to be there that night and meet you and then get your book and, you know, rummage through the book. I mean, it's just great. I mean, it was lovely. So thank you for your book.
I'll be talking about a book that you wrote as well tonight, actually. But anyway, let me quickly run you through what Alison's about for those who don't know. She's an actor, actually, because you've got to be, is it an actor or an actress?
Well, I prefer to be actress, but the popular thing is actor now for some reason. So I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, well, you're an actress. You were originally raised in Liverpool. I'm not going to talk about your acting because that's already been covered many times, but you're amazing as far as I'm concerned. And as many people down in the Zoom room have told me as well. But when you were in Liverpool as a small child, did you kind of get involved and notice nature then, or was it something that came to you later?
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Liverpool. We lived on an estate that was built in the early 30s. So you can imagine they're small houses, you know, sort of 3-bedroom, semi-detached houses with little gardens front and back. But we had a wonderful recreation field 2 or 3 minutes away from my home and a lovely garden. My dad was a very keen gardener. So he was always in the garden. So I was always in the garden. And it was lovely because, you know, he grew vegetables, he grew fruit, rhubarb, mint, all the things on a Sunday when Mum was cooking lunch. She'd say, right, go and collect the mint, go and get me some rhubarb, go and get me some black currants or whatever it was. So I was constantly, if I think of my childhood, I think of, like most of us do, sunny days, and I was in this garden. I had lovely grandma, 2 lovely grandmas. One grandma in particular loved birds. She taught me the love of birds. She taught me, she used to make her own, you know, bird tables, and she'd make a bird bath out of an old, you know, metal bowl, and she'd put concrete round it. She was very inventive, creative lady. And she loved birds. And then you didn't buy bird seed. You know, I'm talking about the sort of early 50s. Even before that, I was born in 1946, just after the war. So, you know, those years, she would feed the birds on scraps. But she would say to me, if the bread is stale, never just put it out for them, because you don't want them to choke or to drink water and then it swells up inside them. That might choke them. So she would wet the bread a little bit before she put it out, you know, and chop up little bits of bacon rind and stuff like that, you know, for blackbirds or whatever. And so there was always interest for me, and I loved crawling about the garden looking for caterpillars, looking for beetles or earwigs or whatever, anything I found in the garden, I would love. And so that was the kind of basis really for my love of birds and insects and animals and wildlife in general. And I had a lovely aunt as well who was, she was very much into, you know, animals, birds, gardening. So again, she would always encourage me, teach me. And it was lovely. It was a lovely, and I feel very grateful to all my family for introducing all those things to me.
I read somewhere, and I don't, you can correct me here, but at the age of 13, you received a tape recorder and you used it in your quest to find out more about natural history. What happened there?
No, what it was, I got a Grundig tape recorder for my birthday. And for the first time, you could record things. And our garden was, you know, summer's evening was just full of birdsong. It was wonderful. And I can remember setting the microphone just outside the living room window, you know, and recording the birdsong. And just loving it and thinking, oh my God, I'm just capturing these moments, you know, of this wonderful blackbird singing in the tree, you know, that wonderful thing in the evening when they all sing together. Yeah, so I loved doing that. Yeah, I loved it.
Did you actually have any aides to help you? Did you have a mentor? But I mean, I know your grandmother sort of introduced you, but did you actually have, whilst you were recording, for example, did you actually have some kind of help in terms of recognizing the songs and calls you were recording?
Not really, no. I can remember going on a school holiday when I was 9, first time I'd been away from home, and I was with all the girls in my class, and we went on a walk, and I heard a blackbird singing away, and I was just trying to impersonate this blackbird, you know, doing the sort of, you know, doing all that. And on the final night before we all came home, we all had to sort of do a little turn, as it were. We had like a little party, and mine was impersonating this blackbird, trying to do the whistle. I mean, it must have been so embarrassing when I think of it now, but I loved it. You know, I loved trying to recognize birdsong, and I'm still not great at recognizing. I can recognize a few, but yeah, I think just to, blackbird is so clear and so recognizable of all the birds. That's the one you can pick up. So my little grandson, who's 3, I hope when I can be with him a bit more to be able to try and teach him and, you know, make him interested in birds and bird song, because it's just so wonderful, wonderful. It stays with you all your life.
Exactly. I'm trying to do the same. I've got 2 grandchildren, believe it or not, and I look about 15.
You've got grandchildren? No.
My granddaughter in particular, I want to get her to be the next urban birder. I'm working really hard, and even without seeing her because of all this lockdown business, she's picking up a pair of binoculars and she's looking around. So I think it's in the genes. It skipped a generation. The mother has no interest, but it skipped a generation.
Yeah.
I'm really quite hopeful.
Oh, that's good.
Talking about tape recorders, because when I was, I think, 11, I entered a school disco, the school disco prize draw, you know, during the school disco, and I won the chance of either winning the latest Shawaddy Waddy album, in fact, it was Shawaddy Waddy's greatest hits, or to get a plastic tape recorder from Woolworths. So I picked up the tape recorder instead.
Great.
I taped punk music on it. I didn't actually use it for wildlife at all. So you're in London now. Obviously, we've all had an atrocious year in terms of this virus, and a lot of us have been kind of locked away and depressed about it. How have you been coping so far with this whole scenario?
Well, I think like most people, I varied between being positive and using the time well, and being depressed, and being recently very tearful, and just not coping very well at all. So I'm like this, you know. But on the whole, I've tried to be positive and use the time, and going out walking every day, even if it's only for a 20-minute walk, just to get fresh air, look at the trees, I mean, one of the lovely things was in the first lockdown in March was that it was spring. The leaves were gradually coming on the trees, and normally, you know, I'm very busy, I'm working, I'm here, there and everywhere. I do walk, but I don't have time to watch each leaf coming out, whereas during that first 6 weeks, you know, we are very lucky to live quite near a wood, and you literally every day could see a little bit more of each leaf growing and growing, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely wonderful. So I did enjoy that side of it. I really did. And like that, I can remember I spotted a green woodpecker in the wood. And I said, there's a great green woodpecker. It was one of those, because we've been hearing them calling for like a fortnight, but could not see one. It was so annoying. And suddenly there it was, you know, on this open bit of land in front of us. And it was so exciting. I was thrilled to bits. So was my partner. It was just so lovely. Because I don't know about, well, not you, but a lot of people I know, you hear birdsong, and I often stop and I stand under the tree. I think the bird's in, and I start to look. Can I find it? No. I look here, I look there. I think, no, it's in that corner. No, it's not. It's over there. No, it's not. It's there. And they really fool you. You can't sort of, you know. So we kept hearing this wonderful green woodpecker calling. And eventually we saw it, so that was lovely. Yeah, but looking and finding wildlife is, that to me helps enormously every day. It really does. You know, it's just a comfort. It's a comfort blanket. Comfort blanket.
It is. It makes you really feel in touch, I suppose, and connects you. It's funny because you mentioned, you know, that I suggested that I wouldn't have a problem finding birds calling in the trees. I have problems like that all day long. I can never find anything. You know, you think that, you know, you have this impression that people can sort of put themselves up as experts, are completely infallible, but in fact,
yeah,
quite the opposite. It's really quite tough sometimes.
Well, especially when a tree is thick with leaves, you know, so you're looking in between, but it's the sound seems to move. They're not moving, but for some reason you know, you think, oh, it's in that corner. No, it's here. I mean, you know, but it's and of course it's all the more exciting when you do see them. Then you go, oh yes, you know.
Nothing that beats that. It's a fantastic feeling.
Yeah.
You like walking around London's green spaces? Or have you got any sort of particular favourite spots?
Oh, well, I've got a lot of favourite spots. I love going over to Hampstead Heath, Kenwood, around there. I really enjoy that. I love going to the London Wildlife Trust. The reservoir near Manor House that they have restored is just so wonderful, because you get
Woodbury Wetlands, or is that the wetlands?
Woodbury Wetlands, yes. And that's so wonderful, because there's things like chetty warblers there, you know, which obviously would never see in my garden or in a park. But because they planted all these wonderful reed beds, and they've, you know, it's great. I went there about 3 weeks ago, and it was just lovely. We just looked across the water, and there were these posts in the water on the far side. There was about 10 of them, and on the top of each one there was a cormorant sitting. There was just a row of cormorants all perched. And it was just brilliant. I was going, look, there's what, you know, and there must have been 10 all in a row. And it was almost like they just decided, you know, all of them to sit there, you know, for half an hour or something. It was just great, just great. You know, it's a lovely, lovely place.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
I think your love of nature and birds in particular is infectious. I mean, a lot of people maybe don't realize that side of you. I read about the fact that Keats's poem Ode to a Nightingale has a special sort of meaning to you. What is that?
Oh, I love Keats. I first learned about Keats when I was at school, when I was about, I suppose we were about maybe 12, 13. And we read that poem. And we had a wonderful teacher called Miss Davis, who was the scariest woman you've ever seen in your life. She would frighten, when I first met her, I was terrified of her. She was the loveliest, warmest, you know, kindest kind of lady. And she taught us about that poem. And she made us understand the poem by relating it to our own lives. And saying that sometimes when you're so happy about something, when you're thrilled to bits, you cry, and you cry not because you're sad, but because you're happy, and because you feel love inside you. And she said, and that's what Keats is doing when he says, my heart aches and a drowsy numbness pains my sense, you know, and then it is not through envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thy happiness that he's listening to this wonderful song. And she explained it like that. And so we, as, you know, young kids, understood what Keats meant and what that sound of that nightingale. And of course, it is the most beautiful sound. And I went to Keats's house, not this year, last year. And the whole time I just was trying to imagine him there and walking on perhaps Hampstead Heath, you know, because it's so close. Was that where he heard this nightingale? And it is lovely. I mean, that poem, if I read it, still can bring a lump to my throat. And I've been reading it since I was like 13, 14 years old. Yeah.
Do you get to see many nightingales and hear them in your life?
No. One of my favourite songs is A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square. And I was talking to someone and they said, oh, that's a ridiculous song. Nightingales never sing in Berkeley Square, you know. So, and then I think the following week there was a piece in the paper and it said a nightingale suddenly did arrive in Berkeley Square. And we're singing. So I thought, yes, you see, they do. And it doesn't matter, does it? Because it's such a lovely romantic song that, and it just teaches you that the song of a bird can be, you know, so uplifting and exhilarating. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in Spain, particularly this year with the lockdown, and our lockdown here was pretty draconian. But when I sort of went out for the first walk that I was allowed to go out on after 40 days of incarceration, or more than that actually, one of the first birds I heard was... Well, that is a nightingale, and it's one of those songs that whenever I hear it, I get the hairs back of my neck. And I remember once, in fact more than once, but on the first occasion, my local patch is Wormwood Scrubs in West London. And I remember one April walking through and all of a sudden I heard a nightingale singing. And I looked around me and I saw the Shard over there, I saw the Channel Tunnel here, I saw Wormwood Scrubs prison over there, and I saw a housing estate, you know, next to me. And I was hearing the sound of what you would, you know, what typifies the countryside in the middle of central London. It was absolutely stunning to actually do that.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
So someone actually asked a question earlier on, I might as well sort of run it past you now. Kate L. And she was saying that some birds you just have a natural affinity to love. Robins so loud and inquisitive and grey herons. And she was asking you which birds do you love and why? You can just name one or two if you can.
I think the long-tailed tit, when occasionally we get them in the garden, and we often go to the Raynham Marshes, the RSPB reserve, which is only an hour's drive from where I live, and you see a lot of them there. And if I get the binoculars, and you can really see those, they are the prettiest little faces. I mean, they just break your heart, and they're so beautiful. And I love the fact that they all kind of stay in little groups together, you know, so you never just see one on its own, like you might see one blackbird, you know, they all come together, and they're all sort of these pretty little things, you know, and they're so gorgeous. I love them. And the other bird I love is a kingfisher. Now, I don't see those very often, but when I do, that flash of that turquoise blue as it whizzes by, you know, yes, a kingfisher, you know, it's, I mean, every bird has its own beauty, but obviously some have, you know, are more beautiful than others. But long-tailed tits, and I think goldfinches as well. They're so lovely, aren't they? With all that, you know, it's almost like someone's designed them and sat and painted them, you know, with the red and the yellow and the black. And you think, how did that come about? How did that amazing design? Oh, just one thought in my head while I think of colours on birds. My grandmother, she used to say to me when I was a child, if you ever want to know what colours go together when you're buying clothes, and your hat and your bag and your gloves and your shoes to match, she said, look at the flowers in the garden or birds, because they're never wrong. They always make it work. And it's true, isn't it? You know, if you see the colours of a you know, long-tailed tit, so perfect. Or, you know, a goldfinch. I mean, all these yellow, black, red, white, you know, yet they make it work. So, yeah, she was very wise, my grandma.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I learned something about long-tailed tits the other day. Actually, I learned that when you catch them, to put rings on them, because you know, they all hang out in groups and people catch them with nets and stuff. Never to release them individually. You release them all together.
Because they're a family. They're like a family. Yeah, a group. Yeah.
Now, you're obviously interested in nature. In the media, you're often referred to as a twitcher. What do you feel about that? Do you think you are a twitcher, or are you a birder, or does it not matter to you?
Well, I always think if someone says a twitcher, they mean someone who is an expert, a real expert. I mean, when we go to Raynham Marshes, you see particularly, well, usually men, and they've got these amazing scopes and all this equipment, and, you know, they're dressed in the right kind of, you know, subtle colours and all that. And I always want to say, could you help me? What's that? Or whatever, you know, but he was a bit nervous too, because they always look so professional. I don't know. I am not an expert. I am an enthusiast, and I'm willing to learn all the time, but I am not an expert. I know all my garden birds. Every bird that comes in this garden where I live, I know the name of, and you know pretty well much about it. But when I go somewhere like Raynham, suddenly I see this bird and you think, oh, is that what kind of thrush is that, or what, you know? So I'm learning all the time. So I would not say that I'm a twitcher. No, I'm an enthusiastic bird watcher.
Well, you and I need to hang out more. Absolutely.
Yeah. You need to give me some lessons.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we need to hang out. I mean, for me, I get, because twitching, and there's nothing wrong with it, but twitching for me is about rushing after rare birds. And you don't necessarily have to be an expert. You may pretend to be, but you don't have to be one. And it is ticking off the list. Whilst for me, there's birders who are people like us who either have a local patch, and it ranges from watching birds in your garden all the way through to being a world birder, traveling around the world to look at different species of bird, but you're kind of watching them. And I think there's varying degrees of professionalism or expertise in each sort of group, but none of them bad. You know, you can be a birder that twitches or a twitcher that goes birding. You know, but I always have to, when I'm in front of a microphone and someone's actually telling me I'm a twitcher, I have to say, well, actually, it's like describing a deep sea angler as a fly fisherman. You know, you still catch fish, but you do it in a different way. So
Yeah.
that's why I always say, actually, excuse me, which is quite interesting. Now, it's not just about birds with you, obviously, because you mentioned caterpillars and stuff. I didn't realize that you wrote a book a while ago, a children's book, about spiders.
Yeah, it's called Spider. Yeah. Well, what happened was I was filming, and an actress I was filming with had a little son with her on set. Her parents brought him along on set, and we were just hanging out, and I had a bit of a break. So I'm chatting to this little boy, and I thought, what can I talk to this little, he was 7. What can I talk to him about? So I just said to him, hey, I said, do you like spiders? And he went, no. And I said, oh, why's that? He said, because they're horrible. And I said, I don't think they are, actually. And he went, yeah, they are, because one came into my house and it was under the television. It was a spider like this. And my dad tried to get it, and he went, with a newspaper. He missed it, and it ran off, and we never found it. And I thought, So I said, okay. So anyway, listen, I'm not an expert on spiders, but I do know a bit about them. So I started to tell him different things about spiders, things they can do, how you can tell a male from a female, how they shed their coats and what they can do and all this. Anyway, so he didn't speak. He just sort of sat there like, like this. But I thought, he hates me. He was bored stiff. Anyway, the next day, his mom came into work and she said to me, oh my God. She said, you told him all about spiders, didn't you? She said, no, he's lecturing me. Mummy, you must never kill a spider because I'll tell you why. She said, and he listed all these things and he's saying to me, and no, they're not horrible. They're not horrible. So I thought to myself, oh my God, if I could do that in 10 minutes talking to this kid, I'm going to write a book about it. So I decided I would write a book giving facts and figures about spiders, interwoven with a very simple story. And there's a pledge at the end of the book where the child has to sign the pledge to say, I will never squash a spider. And it, it seems to have worked. Most kids really enjoy it, like it, And the young boy, he's now 12, the boy I originally spoke to, and he loved it. He loved the book. And there's a picture of him on the back of the book, and the drawings are all kind of based on him. And we had a wonderful illustrator did it. So I was thrilled to bits with it in the end. Yeah, it's good fun.
When was the last time you squished a spider?
I don't think I've knowingly ever squashed a spider, to be honest. I have a thing that I find squashing any creature very difficult, and the odd times I have done, it's because I've done it either by mistake or a hornet a couple of years ago attacked me in my house, flew in, and it actually stung me in the face, and it flew at me. It just got really angry with me, and then came into the bedroom an hour later when I went to bed, and I was under the duvet hiding because it was flying, buzzing around. And I'm not kidding. People think I'm lying when I say this. It was really out to get me. Terrible. So I'm afraid I was screaming at my partner, please come and get this thing, because we couldn't get it out. It was and it was really angry. And hornets, when they're angry, they're very angry. So I'm afraid, all right, I'll admit it, we did squash that hornet that night.
Yeah, hornets are normally they're described as gentle giants, really, aren't they? So obviously this one was...
Yeah, well, this one wasn't. I think I had some food in my hand. I'd been... I don't really want to talk about all this, but because I do feed foxes sometimes, I'll admit that. Not all the time, but I do put food out for them. And I had put some food out, and I had the piece of foil that I had the food on. And it was midnight, and I came in the front door. It was dark, and it must have been able to smell the food on the paper. And it came in, and it was flying around the hall. And I was thrilled to bits. And I'm shouting to my partner, hey, there's a hornet. Come see, there's a hornet, like this. And as I'm shouting it, it flew down. And it was like someone poking you like that in the face. And it really stung me. So there was my partner Googling hornet stings and me rushing to the cupboard. You know, you have all these things you take on holiday for if you get stung by various things that you basically don't use. So I was piling all this stuff on, and ice and all this, and it was very painful, I have to say. But anyway, yeah, that's about the only time I can remember seriously crushing a...
Okay. The other question I was going to ask you was, obviously you are a busy actress. You've been in some very famous, well-known films and programs and stuff. Do you, I mean, I mentioned this earlier on, I suppose, but do you actually get any spare time whilst on set to kind of, you know, get yourself mellowed out by going out to look for nature if you're filming, especially if you're filming in an interesting location? Do you ever do that? Or
well, I have to say most of the time, either in a studio or perhaps the location is, you know, in a building or a house somewhere, you know, and it's not, but occasionally I have been in situations where you're in, you know, countryside or whatever, and I've got my binoculars with me and I do go out. One of the nice things that happened was a few years ago, I was filming on it was a farm, and we were in sort of this house on the farm, and I was sitting outside, and it was summertime, and house martins were flying in and out, you know, under the roof. They were obviously nesting, and they were flying. So I had my binoculars and I was watching, and one of the guys said to me, oh, he said, what are you looking at? And I said, the house martins. I said, look, they're nesting. And you could see the little chicks were kind of poking the little heads out the nest, you know, and it was brilliant. And he said, oh, can I borrow your binoculars? So he had a look. And then there was something else happened down the garden that went into this field, and there was a little stream, and there was some trees, and we could see woodpeckers and things, and I was watching those, and he came with me. He was watching, and I met him about a year later, and he said, you got me hooked. He said, I'm a complete birder now. He said, I've got bird books, his binoculars. He said, I've learned all about it. I go out, he said, and I'm loving it. So those things are lovely when they happen, aren't they? You know, when you can inspire somebody to get interested. And yeah, there have been times. There was another time I was filming where all our vehicles were parked, was surrounded by trees. And I could see these birds at the top of these trees all kind of gathering. And I didn't have binoculars with me. I couldn't see them. So I sent a message around the crew, has anyone got any binoculars? And this young lad came up, and he had binoculars, and he just knew. And now my brain's gone, I can't remember what they were, but they were like migrating, a group of quite unusual. They were birds with like a little, you know, like little feathers sticking up on the top of their heads. And
not waxwing, was it during the winter?
Waxwing.
Okay.
Waxwing. Yeah. And he knew straight away, this kid, he was about 16, 17. He was a kind of runner on the show. And he just went, oh yeah, they're waxwings. Yeah, they're on the way. You know, but I said, oh, great, can I borrow your binoculars for a minute? But yeah, so that's, you know, sometimes it's lovely to be on location and be able to do that. But it doesn't happen that often. So,
what do your friends and family think of you and your obsession with nature?
Ignore me. No, I mean, sadly, my mum and dad aren't with us anymore, but my dad in particular was, you know, he loved wildlife and he loved animals and everything. And as a kid, we always had, you know, we had a tortoise in the garden, and we had, you know, a cat and various, you know, I always had pets and things around me, you know, it was, but yeah, I'm really hoping, I've got a 3-year-old grandson, and I'm really hoping that I can persuade him to get interested. But you know, for kids nowadays, there's so much on iPads and television, and you know, their heads are so full of all sorts of things that when I was a kid, there was a lot less. You know, I didn't get the telly till I was 7, and then television didn't start, you know, till 5 o'clock or something. There was no daytime television, and so I think one was encouraged to be out and about in the garden much more, perhaps, than kids are now. I don't know. Having said that, in my local woods, there's a pond, and in the summer there were a load of newts in this pond, and there was loads of kids interested and saying, oh, look, there's a newt, you know, and all this. So, you know, it's still a lovely thing.
Yeah,
Still a lovely.
I think when we do go out birding, when some of this pandemic business is kind of calmed down a bit, we'll have to bring grandchildren with us as well.
Yeah, definitely. Good idea.
Do you think that birds first kind of honed in your thoughts when it came to things like recycling, and also generally about the world and how we are treating it? Do you think that they were the first indicators to you, or how did you kind of get? I know you've got this big thing about plastics and about how we're basically mashing this world up. Where did that come about? How did that come about?
Well, I think one of the things I began to see pictures of was things like hedgehogs that had got wrapped up in plastic netting, you know, the kind of netting that you get on satsumas, you know, bags of satsumas, and that you know, they're not biodegradable, you know, and or onions, you know, put in this netting, and you know, the fact that birds get, you know, their feet tied up in them, and it's just horrible. When I was doing a show at a theatre in Richmond, and I used to love walking, you know, by the river because it's so lovely. And one day I was just walking along, and there's swans everywhere, and a swan had built a nest, and I would say 80% of it was plastic. You know, this poor creature that was, you know, broken up plastic bottles, and there was, I mean, it was just plastic bags in a swan's nest. And the poor creature had just grabbed all these things. It didn't know what the hell it was, you know, and made this nest. And there was, you know, an egg sitting in the middle of all this plastic. And I just thought, oh, God, this is just so sad. And then, of course, when you see turtles, oh, one of the things I heard, this is about 15 years ago, that there was a turtle washed up on a beach in Mexico, and it was dead, and they wanted to find out why, and they opened it up, and they found 287 or something plastic bags in its stomach, and of course it had starved and choked to death. Now that was one turtle. This is happening constantly. These poor turtles, they see these plastic bags in the water, and of course they think they're some sort of food, so they're eating them, and it's so sad. And the other one that got me was reading about birds that feed their young ones on fish. And they picked lighters, you know, those throwaway lighters that are all different colours. They'd seen them shining in the water and thought they were fish, and had taken them and shoved them down the throats of their chicks because they thought they were feeding them food. It's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. And if everyone just really sat and thought about it, you know, we could make a huge difference overnight.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Just a quick Google search about the pollution caused by plastic, and it brings up some horrifying facts. 8.3 billion tons of plastic produced worldwide since the 50s. 73% of beach litter is plastic. I went to Georgia once, and I was walking along the shoreline, and there was more plastic bottles than there were rocks. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
A million plastic bottles are bought globally every minute. 2 million plastic bags are used every minute. 90% of plastic pollution in our ocean is carried by just 10 rivers. The average person eats 70,000 microplastics every year. And then the lifespan of a plastic bag is 12 minutes on average.
Yeah.
It's
horrendous. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, plastic bottles. I remember when my boys were young, they were about maybe sort of 8, 12, that kind of age. I took them to the Science Museum. And in the Science Museum, they had a water tank with a plastic bottle in it. And this machine was turning it like this, as it would in the ocean. And it was explaining how many years it took for this plastic bottle to disintegrate in the water. And then it explained, of course, that it never disintegrates, because even if you can't see the pieces, these tiny microscopic pieces are in the water forever, will never go away. Now, that was my son's now 42. So that was quite a long time. We were being made aware of this. And yet it's only in the last couple of years that people have, not everyone, but a lot of people have tried to stop using plastic water bottles. These companies that produce this water have told us lies for years. You know, oh, it's not safe to drink your tap water. Oh, it's, you know, all this trying to persuade us. These plastic bottles, millions of them, travel up and down the country in huge lorries, and it's all unnecessary. It's different if you're perhaps living in a country where your water's polluted and you seriously can't drink it because it'll make you ill. But that's not the case in this country. Most of our water is fine. It's fine to drink. And it just makes me so sad. So sad.
Yeah, I mean, you know, traveling around Europe, for example, it's interesting how different countries have different attitudes towards their use of plastic. I mean, I'm based in Spain at the moment, and I go to the supermarket, a normal supermarket, and you've got things wrapped in plastic. I mean, bananas wrapped in plastic.
We've got that here. Why? Stop it. Yeah.
But then there's other countries that are far more enlightened. What do you actually think we should be doing? How, for example, in Britain, what should a government be doing to curb our use of plastics?
Oh, well, obviously raising awareness, and I know, you know, schools are trying to do that with youngsters. But I mean, things like when I see plastic banana shapes for your child to carry its banana to school, please, why? A banana has the most wonderful protective skin, you know, that's there already. It doesn't need to be in another plastic thing. You know, we have all this nonsense. I remember a while ago finding something for a plastic thing for taking, you know, strawberries when you get the bit of green, for taking that out. Oh, please, there are times I've been in shops and I've seen things and I've literally wanted to scream with anger and frustration at what we allow, you know, what companies decide they're going to produce that's so detrimental to our, you know, I mean, I think the government should have stronger laws. I really do. And when they brought in this thing of, you know, if you buy a plastic bag, it costs you 5p. I know it's gone up now to 10p, I think. But if it's 5p, that's nothing. You know, if you get
complain.
But if you get 5 bags, that's 50p on your huge shop. Oh, come on. You know, and people used to say to me, not so much now, people are getting used to it. They used to say, oh, I've got all these reusable bags and I always forget to take them. So I have to buy more when I get, and I just go, no. All right, if you forget to take them, you get a big piece of paper and write on bags, pin it to the door that you exit from to go shopping. And you see that every day, then you'll remember. It's a simple thing to do. When I was a kid, my mum used to go shopping. She used to keep her reusable bags. She had a straw bag and another bag. She used to keep them in the little pantry that we had, which was on our way out. She'd open the pantry, always, and the bags would go on her arm, and we'd go out. She never forgot a bag, ever, because you couldn't get bags in the shops then, you know, and it just annoys me when people say, oh, but I forget, you know, I've got a cupboard full of these bags. Oh, stop. Sorry, I'm going to go off on one now, but it just makes me so angry. Just, there are ways to remember, and it's simple. And this is not a trivial thing. This is essential. It's essential.
Yeah, I also think, someone's just rang my doorbell. I also think that it is an educational thing, because I come across kids, you know, I remember driving somewhere and there were a couple of young people driving in front of me, and boy and a girl, and the girl just casually chucked a chocolate bar wrapper out the window. I picked it up and I drove alongside them and I said, I think you dropped this.
Oh, God.
I think people do not understand that what they do has massive consequences down the line, because your plastic bag, your piece of rubbish that you chuck casually in a river or just chuck on the floor, will possibly end up inside a turtle that dies, will kill some kind of sea life, will kill us eventually. And it's really hard to get that message through to people. And I know that people connected to nature more during lockdown and stuff, but I'm just hoping that, because on a local level, you know, in Britain and in places where we've had these lockdowns, I'm just hoping that messages were put out during that period of time. And I don't think the full message was. I mean, I think, you know, for example, during the first lockdown, everyone was really kind of hearing birdsong and it was great. But I really do feel that the broadcasters and media in general lost that opportunity to basically say to people, and educate them a little bit more about what's happening. You know?
Yeah, education.
Not just saying, oh, and finally, isn't it great we're hearing lots of birdsong? Maybe try and say, well, actually, isn't that great? And maybe we should be encouraging this more. And to do that, we need to do this less.
Yeah. And more programs actually showing films of all these poor creatures that are suffering and dying because of all this plastic. I mean, I went somewhere in the UK and I was on tour, and honestly, the beach, it not only had plastic bottles and things, but it had like plastic chairs, you know, fridges. I mean, the sea had washed all this up. It was just horrendous. Oh, I don't know. It just makes me so sad. I mean, I saw a young boy. He came out of a mini supermarket, and he had a little plastic bag, and inside he had a plastic box with some pineapple in. He came out. He took the box out. He dropped the little plastic bag. He took the top off, the peel, you know, the top that peeled up, dropped that. He ate the pineapple as he was standing outside the shop, and then just dropped the box on the floor and walked off. In that 2 minutes, it said everything about people that are totally unaware and don't care. A, he didn't need a plastic bag to carry it 1 yard outside the shop. You know? Yeah, but still, when I go to the supermarket, so many things now that it has improved. It's improved, I would say, I don't know, 15% with the packaging, but most of it is still, you know, I go along and I'm saying, I'm not buying those bananas because they're in a plastic bag. Why? You know, I'm not getting those satsumas because they're in a netting. I'm not doing, sorry. You know, and some supermarkets are trying, but not enough. Not enough.
Yeah.
I signed a petition the other day, and I think it was to do with Sainsbury's to do more, you know, to actually, you know, you say you're doing this, but it's across the board. The majority of supermarkets are just not doing enough.
Yeah.
They're not.
Okay, well, to switch the subject slightly.
Yeah, to shut up, Alison, now.
To make it a little bit more light, I suppose, towards the end. I get the feeling that you love Britain as a place to wander around in and have a look at nature and stuff. Is that right to assume?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely.
What other parts of Britain do you like apart from wandering around urban spaces in London?
I love the coastline. I love Dorset, and I love I don't know, just the Seven Sisters along, you know, the cliffs, and it's just wonderful. And because I've been to the Inner Hebrides and did a program around there, and I've been to the Shetlands, and that was pretty exciting too. I remember, I think it was in not the Shetlands, it was, I think it was when we were in the Hebrides, and I was on a cliff, and I think it was the Shetlands actually, and I was a bit nervous because it was quite windy. We were very, very high up, and I was kind of looking like that, and the expert guy we were with just said to me, Alison, you're quite safe, because he told me how to stand, you know, how to position my feet so I'd be really secure. I'm not one for heights, you know, so I was a bit, you know, right on the top of this cliff. And he said to me, if you take one step forward and you'll still be safe, I promise you won't regret it. And I said, you serious? And I did. I took one step, and I just looked, and the whole of the cliff was just full of birds. I think they were fulmars. Is that right? Fulmars.
Fulmars, yeah.
Fulmars. And they were all kind of nesting. They'd all just arrived, so they were all kind of saying hello to each other. And, you know, there was hundreds of them. It was just, and I said to him afterwards, I said, thank you so much for making me take that one step, because it made so much difference. It was so exciting. It was brilliant. And I just love the fact that, you know, some birds fly thousands of miles and they find the same nest, you know, and they're with the same partner. How mad is that, you know? But it's just great. Yeah, I just love it. I just love learning facts and things about, you know, and how birds fly thousands of miles when they're like 6 months old or something, and they can fly to South Africa or wherever, spend the winter, then come back and find their way back, and no one's told them which way to go. I just find that, I think, what?
It's incredible. This
inbuilt sort of navigation system that they have is just extraordinary.
Yes. Speaking of flying, do you ever travel? I mean, do you have any destinations abroad that you like going to?
Yeah, I do. I've travelled a reasonable amount. I haven't been everywhere, but I've been to America, Canada. Funny enough, talking about cities, I love being in New York and going in Central Park and looking at all the birds there, because that was just great fun, looking at their robins, for instance, that are 4 times the size of ours. And, that was really, really exciting. I do love traveling, although obviously because of the whole pandemic thing, I've not been away for a while now. But I've been down in Dorset and doing a bit of birding down there. I mean, I think anywhere you go in the world, you can find, interesting nature and interesting bird life and wildlife. And I went to South Africa about 4 or 5 years ago now, and went on safari, and that was incredible, absolutely incredible. To be 10 yards from 9 lions at one point was like freaking me out, but it was fine, they couldn't care less, and it was wonderful. And then we parked up our truck and we went on a walk to this lake where there were hippopotamuses in the water. And we had a guy in the front and a guy at the back with guns, just as a safety thing in case, we got into trouble. Obviously, we're in a dangerous situation. There were crocodiles in the water and everything. And all these hippos were in the water. And, it was amazing because they were all kind of like looking at us, and then they kind of just carried on. And then at one point, they all lined up across the water, about 20 of them. And our guy just went, okay, let's go. They don't want us here anymore. We just went. And of course you looked and they were all like, go away, we've had enough now. And it was fascinating. It was brilliant.
Well,
and we had a great time.
Sorry?
We just had a great time, and the birds and colours, and it was just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, they do say that hippos are the most dangerous animals in Africa, aren't they? They kill more people
Yeah.
than anything else. Okay, what is your favourite? Have you got a favourite insect?
Well, I think it's the Cardinal Beetle. I found one in the woods here a couple of years ago, and it was like, ooh, and it was just so great. That bright red, shiny back, and it was sitting there. And it's that thing when you find something you really kind of, you think, oh my God, that's a Cardinal Beetle. Oh my God. And then I've looked for it ever since. Never seen it again. Yeah. And sometimes you just see, and that was lovely. But I don't know, I can't think I've got a favourite creature. I do love ants, I have to say. I really do, because I think when most people see ants, they go, oh, ants, we've got ants in the house, I'll get rid of them, kill them, But actually, they are the most fascinating creatures. And I tell you, I believe that ants and the way that they organise their lives and their groups and their kids and they have people to do this and guys to do that and nurses to do this with the baby. They are so organised and they communicate so well. Once you read up and find out about ants and how intelligent they are and how they communicate and how they, it is absolutely wonderful. They are wonderful creatures. I mean, they're a damn nuisance if they get in your house, I know, and get in your cupboards and all that. But that's, are we on their territory, or are they on ours? Do you know what I mean? I always kind of think like that, like,
Did you eat them as kids? As a kid, should I say?
Did I what?
Did you eat them?
Eat them?
Yeah.
Eat an ant?
Yeah.
No.
Kids do that.
No, I did not.
If you could be anywhere in the world, Alison, notwithstanding the current pandemic, where would you be right now?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I love all of Europe. I love Europe. I suppose there are places I haven't travelled I would still like to go to. I mean, I can't believe this when I say this, but I've been to Spain a lot, but I've never been to Barcelona. I mean, that's mad, isn't it? I mean, but for some reason, you know, whatever has happened, I've never actually been. I've been to, you know, all sorts of Madrid and, you know, all sorts of places, but I've never been to Barcelona, so I do want to go there. And I don't know what the urban birds are like in Barcelona, but I bet they're quite good. Yeah.
Really good. Okay, we've come to the point of the episode where I briefly tell the Zoomers what's coming up. Tomorrow night, we've got this guy called Professor Dave Goulson. He's chatting about insects and in particular bumblebees, and he'll be our last in conservation with for 2021. And then we welcome the new year with a few women to start off with. We've got a lady called Karina Newsom, who is a young woman, an Afro-American, who is really all about getting fellow Afro-Americans into nature. So she's quite outspoken. She's got 100,000 followers on Twitter overnight. She's really kind of, you know, moving up in the world. So we'll be talking to her on January the 4th. The following night, a woman called Catherine Hamilton, who is an artist, a very talented artist. She lives in LA, so she will be taking us through her art. We've got another woman called Wendy Clark on Wednesday, the 6th of January, and she's another American, and she's a bit of an entrepreneur, marketeer, and she's going to be talking about the fact that she's taken over the publishing of a birding magazine, but she also tries to encourage women and other people into birding. And then back to England on Thursday the 7th, a guy called Benedict MacDonald, who actually works in TV, but he is a really interesting fellow talking about urban rewilding and combating ecological tidiness disorder. And then the week commencing the 11th of January, we're going to have a series of interviews with young people, starting with Indy Camel Green, who's a young guy interested in fighting raptor persecution in the UK. And he's going to be interviewed by none other than Maya, who's in this room. I'm going to take a back seat. I'm going to be doing the policing that she does. So Maya's going to be talking with Indy Kimmel Green, a young, I think he's 15 years old, but again, one for the future. The following night, we've got Amy Hall, who is a young lady who's a member or part of the Cameron Bespoker Trust, which again is aimed at young people, getting them into nature, and she'll be chatting about her work for them. And on the Wednesday night, the 13th of January, Lucy Lapwing, who's another young lady who basically is all about telling the world about the weird and wonderful wildlife in the UK. So we've got some really nice things coming up next year, as well as tomorrow night. So yeah, all good stuff. So Alison, I want to thank you so much for inspiring us tonight. And I'm sure that people in the future watching this will be equally as inspired. I mean, I don't think many people actually know how much you care about the world and nature. They may know that you're interested in birds, but I don't know the full kind of spectrum really. So thank you for sharing that with us tonight.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Really my pleasure. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And Zoomers, once again, I'd like to thank you for sparing your hour of your time before Christmas and all that sort of stuff. And all I want to say is obviously take care of yourself and be careful and keep looking up.